Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our regular commission meeting for Tuesday, September 14th. We will start this evening with the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you and welcome, everyone. The first item tonight is our consent agenda.
I'll make a motion that we approve.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. The first item tonight on our regular agenda is to consider a request to close West First Street from Beverly to Grandview and Grandview from West First Street to the Athletic Park entrance on September 24th. Denise?
Basically, you said everything that needs to be said with that, Mayor. This is for the homecoming parade that the high school does every year, and they are just requesting for that to be closed for a short amount of time, and city staff is good with that request.
Awesome. Do we have a motion?
I make the motion to approve the closing of Athletic Park Street for the Newton High School homecoming.
Thank you, Commissioner.
I second that.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Next item this evening is to consider a request to use 6th Street parking lot behind the gathering for their kids' church. Denise?
Yes, thank you. As you know, the Gathering is doing some remodeling over in their kids' church area, and so they are wanting to put up a tent on the Sundays through October 3rd in the back behind their building over there. They would take that tent down, and they are just wanting to have it up from like 8 a.m. to noon, and city staff has visited about that and is okay with that too.
Awesome.
I move we approve the gathering for their kids' church.
Thank you, Commissioner. And second?
I second that.
Thank you for the second. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Next item this evening is to consider a resolution authorizing the sale of a general obligation refunding bonds. Donna.
Me. You did have a pre-sale summary in your packet. I'm not going to read that whole thing to you. I'm just going to hit a couple highlights here. This is going to be our Newton, Kansas General Obligation Refunding Bond Series 2021A. Our par amount is going to be $6,625,000. The sale date is October 12th, 2021. This is a public competitive sale, and the purpose is to refund the Series 2013A bonds on a current tax-exempt basis for interest cost savings. The present value of interest cost savings is approximately $506,000. The average annual cash flow for the next 5 years, we're going to save $57,000. For each of the 7 years after that, we'll save about $35,000. This is the fourth occasion that we have refunded outstanding bonds for interest cost savings since the pandemic. And our total interest cost savings to date is $2.1 million. And that's pretty good. This is net of costs associated with the refunding. The market is favorable to issuers of municipal bonds. Rates continue to be near historic lows, and demand for municipal bonds outpaces supply of bonds coming on the market. So we're still good. Our rating is, right now, as it has been the last few years, is AA- with a stable outlook. And these bonds will be rated by S&P in the coming weeks. I look forward to their call. What we need you to do today is authorize the sale of the Series 21A bonds and direct staff and our consultants to take the necessary next actions. We will prepare the offering documents for the bonds as well as conduct the rating call. We will be back before the commission on October 12th to report the results and for you to consider awarding the bids to the lowest bidder and authorizing all the bond docs. This does not extend the timeline. Most of the big ones fall off by 2027. Annually, the payments are about $950,000. That falls off in 27. In the next few years, it's just around $250,000. So it doesn't extend anything. We're just saving money.
Just love how you can turn over those rocks and save us money.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
Awesome.
If I might add one quick comment from staff, and just for the benefit of the public, a reminder that, remember when we did that community survey in 2020, the 85-ish% of the community said one of their number one priorities was for us to refinance, pay down existing debt, and figure out a way to continue to build new projects without incurring additional debt over what we previously had. So part of that has been fortunate, and the silver lining of the pandemic, we've been able to do that. So just kind of reminder, this is another one of those boxes we're trying to check that the community overwhelmingly asked for.
So we need a resolution number there, Denise?
Sure, that would be G1257.
Okay. I move that we approve G1257, authorizing staff for the refunding of these bonds.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. All right. We need a motion to recess into an executive session.
Yeah,
Chris,
staff-
how long?
Staff's thinking about 30 minutes, so maybe reconvene at 7:35.
I move that the city commission recess into executive session to receive legal advice from counsel. The justification for closing the meeting is to consult with the city attorney to discuss matters privileged under the attorney-client relationship, and the time and place at which the open meeting shall resume is 7:35 PM right here at the City Hall in the City Commission chambers.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
And we have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are recessed into executive session.
Six now.
We tried, that's about as much as we can say. Gotta give us credit for that.
Good evening, everybody. Having returned from our executive session where no binding action has been taken, we are back in our regular commission meeting. The next item on this evening's agenda is Tindall Corporation. Chris?
Yeah, and I'll give you an overview. There is a memo in your packet that talks about these 4 action items that are before you for your consideration. I'll go over the 4 and then answer any questions that you have, and should you go forward, you would approve each with a separate motion. The first is an MOA. It's with the county, and just to give some context to the audience and those viewing, this red outline that you see on the board, this is former, current Tindall property. The city entered into an option to purchase, which gives the city the opportunity to get that property at a certain price, not a requirement, but we can at any point. And part of that option says that it can be contingent upon a further sale. So the city could exercise that option contingent on selling it to another entity. We wouldn't have to necessarily purchase it, hold it, and then, wait for a sale. So you've already approved that. We have that option agreement. So the first action item is a memorandum of agreement. It's with the county. It was approved by the county this morning. And the reason we've got this agreement is because there's a 2010 interlocal agreement that was signed between the city and the county, and it had to do with the development of the KLP and the rights and responsibilities of the county and the city. There is a provision that talks about if certain properties are sold, that there would be a sale of net proceeds. This would be an equitable result in terms of acknowledging the county's partnership and giving a 1/3 share of any net profits should the city sell the property that we're talking about, the Tindall property. It is limited to the Tindall property, and again, it acknowledges that the county and the city put in resources together. They are a community partner, and addresses that interlocal. The interlocal is filed and attached with the property and is controlling in some aspects. So if you have any questions about the MOA, we can talk about that, but the county approved it. The second is a due diligence access agreement. As you recall, you've already approved a version of this due diligence access agreement at a previous meeting. What had happened was that Tyndall made an amendment to it, a strike through with a signature. It was a separate version that what you guys had approved. So staff has gone back and forth with Tyndall. We've reviewed and amended that section. Now they have signed the version that is in your agenda packet. We talked about what the access agreement does, and it essentially just, city doesn't own the property. Tyndall's giving consent for others to come on, do inspections, do environmental, and inspect the property. So that's just a necessary instrument to the next, which is the PSA. And the PSA is the purchase and sale agreement. It's included in your agenda packet. It has the city as the seller of the property, and I've put through some of the highlights in the memo in terms of what's in the PSA. Let me go to that real quick. One thing that I did omit was that within the PSA, the city does have an option to repurchase the property at the purchase price if development doesn't occur after a certain period of time. And again, with an option, that's not an obligation to purchase, but at least it's a right to do so. Essentially, if you prove the PSA, which has not yet been formally approved by GAF, once they sign it, it's an enforceable agreement. They would have a $100,000 down payment escrow. Then they would start a due diligence period, which is a 120-day period, which they can do their inspections, check title, check the property, everything they want. During that 120 days, they can walk away penalty-free during that due diligence period. There's no obligation for them to go forward. However, once the due diligence period expires, if they haven't given notice to take any further action on it, now we have a binding deal where the city would close. The city would then exercise its option, as we talked about, contingent upon that future sale. So we wouldn't necessarily have to acquire the property and wait for the closing. We could make it contingent on that sale to GAF. So that's kind of the mechanics of how it worked. The purchase price, all the other details are in the PSA. I would stand for any questions on the PSA. The final action item is the resolution, and that essentially just is a formality to execute the PSA. It talks about how the mayor can sign something that's in substantial form. You'll see that there's a few blanks that need to be filled in, the list of exhibits, definitions, and those things. So we would clean that version up and have the mayor sign it. Obviously, it couldn't change any of the significant, aspects of the agreement, but just that cleanup. And just to kind of to give that overview, in the PSA, it's in the packet. It essentially just is the transaction. It's a mechanism to transfer the property from Tyndall to the city to GAF. That's what it accomplishes. It doesn't talk about future use or any of those things. It just talks about the transaction. I would stand for any questions. Kara here, she's a representative from GAF. She's also here if you have any questions for her. Staff's available. We welcome any questions that you have on this.
So this is a lot of work has gone in by staff to package this and tee it up as a sale of this land that has been out in our industrial park but has not been developed for so many years. And I think everybody's kind of eager to close that chapter and see progress on it. See a new manufacturer come in along with the investment in our community, but also the opportunity for additional jobs within our community. So I want to thank staff for all the hard work that you've done putting this together, but really this, up to this point, is no additional, this is how these things are packaged up in the commercial world. Companies go and seek out their land and then they find it, and then the details come later. And that's what we don't know right now. And I would just let the public know that once GAF decides how they're going to develop that land, how they're going to use it, and what they're going to do on it, the city will know and everybody else will know. But I don't even know that GAF actually has those firm plans in place. So any
Yeah.
questions from the bench?
I don't have any more.
I'm good.
Did you have any comments? No? Thank you. Suzanne? So what we need to look at this evening is item A, to consider the MOA with the Board of Commissioners of the Harvey County.
I move that we approve the MOA with the Harvey County.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. The next item would be to consider a due diligence access agreement with Tindall Corporation.
I'll make a motion that we consider the due diligence access agreement with Tyndall.
Thank you, Commissioner.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Having none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item is item C, to consider a purchase and sale agreement, PSA, with GAF Materials LLC.
I move we approve the purchase and sale agreement with GAF.
Thank you, Commissioner. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Denise, do you have a
Yes,
resolution number?
Mayor, I do. G-1258.
Thank you very much. Next, we will consider a resolution approving purchase sale agreement with GAF Materials LLC. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we consider a resolution approving purchase and sell agreement with GAF Materials, and that is G-1258.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Thank you, Chris, and thank you to staff for putting that together. Next item on this evening's agenda is to consider an ordinance updating and amending the city code to include permit requirement for the partial demolition of interior, exterior of any structure. Chris?
One moment. Okay, cool, thank you. Sorry, Mayor. Item 9 is an amendment to the city code, and it essentially accomplishes three things. It adopts the 2018 IBC, which is the International Building Code, the 2018 IRC, which is the International Residential Code, and then it also creates a new provision that requires a permit for demos. And you saw in the memo and also in the text of the ordinance, there are certain exceptions if it's non-structural and under $10,000. This is the first reading for this. Staff supports it. Stand for any questions. Matt in my office worked a lot on this, and Suzanne's staff as well. But I can answer any questions the best I can.
So basically, instead of pulling a permit to demo the entire building, this is pulling a permit to demo portions of a building.
Absolutely, whereas a permit would not have otherwise been required, it would be, right? That gets the city at least eyes on it on the front end and support of the staff. Go ahead.
Instead of raising a building that we think of,
Right.
completely picking one up and getting rid of it. This is any kind of demolition, as long as it's over the requirements.
I should have made that point. We do have that on the books. If you're going to raise a structure, you have to get which we call the demo
Right.
permit, but it was raising the property.
And what's your resolution number?
And this would be an ordinance.
Oh, ordinance.
That would be 5055-21.
Thank you.
I move to approve 5055-21.
I second.
Thank you, Commissioners. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Next item this evening is to consider a resolution to initiate the process of reclaiming certain abandoned burial plots at Greenwood Cemetery. Chris is a popular guy tonight.
Yeah, no kidding. This is just I gave you an outline or a memo in the packet, but essentially this has to do with some cemetery lots where there's questionable ownership. They have not been utilized. You've had a citizen that's requested them due to proximity of family members. And because of that cloudy title, we have to go through this procedure, which is cemetery revestment. It starts with this resolution that's before you. Essentially, you adopt the resolution. It's published 3 times. If no claims are made, my office can file an action in district court to clear title, and then we can convey them to someone else. This isn't a matter of, just a few years. It's over 50 years, and I think for these, Denise, it's well over 50 years that someone purchased it, has not utilized it, has since passed away. And again, you've got people that would like to be, buried close to a loved one, and where it's not being used, we go through this process. Of course, if someone does file the notice and says, no, I have an ownership right in that, we're gonna honor that. But otherwise, it cleans it up. This is all covered by statute.
Have we ever done this in the past?
I believe we have some time ago. Denise will speak to it.
Yes, we have. We did it back in 1984. We had original first and second edition that were revested. And so there were a lot of lots that it took a lot of time to do that. So we really need to do it for the rest of the cemetery for the 3rd edition and 4th edition at some point.
Well, I found it astounding that just Greenwood has over 22,000 plots. I mean, I was just amazed by that. So the paperwork and everything on that's got to be.
So I have a question, maybe you know this, Susan, out of 27,400 or so lots, how many are used and how many are vacant?
15,000, well, it's about 17,000 that are, have somebody buried in them at this point.
Wow.
Doesn't seem like that. Yeah.
And the other fact that came up that was really interesting is that the lots were originally sold in like sets of 8.
Right.
So that's why we have that fragmentation.
Exactly.
With the old burials and then nothing next to them. And that's just part of what that family was wanting to get close to loved
Exactly,
ones.
exactly. Very good.
Where do we pick the start and stop to lots we're going to try to?
Well,
the reasons
they're defined in
Okay.
the document, but
Okay.
we could go forward and do another wide sweep. It's just it's a matter of staff time to do the,
Yeah.
not only look at the records, but do a physical inspection and all those things. So we're trying to do it as a courtesy to the person that's requested it. And, the thought would be, although the staff time is unlikely to be reimbursed, we would add the publication cost to that, I think, as a fair trade-off to offset the cost.
I mean, is
But
there
I think
like
it's,
50 that we're looking at?
I think we're only just doing a handful.
We're only doing
Five.
this sale, so what we're doing is
Yeah.
we're immediately.
These are only for four or 5 lots.
Exactly.
If we're going to do that, we have probably over 200 that we could revest at some point.
Depending on where it goes, we could come back to you with another process and we'd name those other ones and, go through it.
I wouldn't look at revesting anything that we didn't have a ready sale for. I mean,
Sure.
Why go through the process if we can't sell it?
Yeah, that's fair.
But the one reason to go through the process is as we get lower on lots to
Right.
sale.
More
and you
options.
want to make sure that you have
Yeah.
enough available as the public requests that.
Yep, that's a razor blade, so. Very good. Any further discussion? So there's a resolution for this, or?
Yeah, resolution.
Denise?
1259?
Yeah.
But yes, that number would be G1259.
Yeah,
Good
she's
guess.
presented on us before, so that's why
I
I
would
make
make
that.
a motion that we approve Resolution G1259.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Next item this evening would be the citizen forum, but we
Yes.
had nobody sign up for that.
Okay, and I was just going to ask if you would please indulge staff. The city attorney and I would like to have an additional executive session with you this evening before we close.
Okay.
Be for attorney-client privilege.
Same motion.
Yeah, about 5 minutes if we may. And there will be no action taken, so if anyone would like to go ahead and leave, we will just come back and adjourn in 5 minutes, so,
And I don't know if you want to go around the horn first.
yeah, it's up to you.
Commissioner?
Oh, I get to go first. Busy day today, so when I was walking into City Hall tonight, I noticed how pretty the flowers were out in front. So Suzanne, would you pass that along? And
You bet.
it was nice just to stop and see the simplicity underneath the flags.
I don't have anything.
No, sir.
No, sir.
Commissioners, I would just tell you that I forwarded to you right before the meeting an update on our project list and where things lie. If you have questions, please let me know.
Nothing for me.
Just thank you to all of you. All of you, our first responders always. We appreciate you and the staff. Thank you very much.
Well, the pool's closed, but Wheat Ridge is open, and we got all those nice new lines on the roads. So thank you to the crews that are getting the resurfacing done and the lines on the road, and all the staff's hard work to keep the city going. So thank you. Can we get that motion, somebody?
I move that the city commission recess into executive session to receive legal advice from counsel. The justification for closing the meeting is to consult with the city attorney to discuss matters privileged under the attorney-client relationship, and the time and the place at which the meeting shall resume is 7:58 right here at City Hall.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Have to wait 2 more minutes?
Did you see the high school had a Lamborghini Mar-a-Lago today out at the high school in their shop class? Yeah, the shop teacher's brother just bought it.
Was taken. We are back in our regular session, and with no further business this evening, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mayor.